Now we will be looking at Spring and All by William Carlos Williams. As I said before, William Carlos Williams does not, certainly not as much as Eleanor Wiley did, follow normal conventions of poetry. So he's not going to be writing to a bunch of rules, but he is going to be using poetic devices. And I want you to keep an eye out for what poetic devices William Carlos Williams is using here. Spring and All. By the road to the contagious hospital, under the surge of the blue mottled clouds driven from the northeast, a cold wind. Beyond the waste of broad muddy fields brown with dried weeds, standing and fallen, patches of standing water, the scattering of tall trees. All along the road, the reddish purplish forked upstanding twiggy stuff of bushes and small trees with dead brown leaves under them, leafless vines. Lifeless in appearance, sluggish, dazed spring approaches. They enter the new world naked, cold, uncertain of all save that they enter. All about them the cold, familiar wind. Now the grass, tomorrow the stiff curl of wild carrot leaf. One by one objects are defined. It quickens, clarity, outline of leaf. But now the stark dignity of entrance. Still, the profound change has come upon them. Rooted, they grip down and begin to awaken. Short poem with a heavy reliance on images and imagery, for sure. Going back to the beginning here, by the road to the contagious hospital, you can see is a medical facility for people with infectious diseases. Right off the bat, what a weird place to start this poem, right? Contagious rather than, it makes it think that the hospital itself is contagious. I don't know if that's just a quirk of the language or what, but it's definitely an interesting way to begin, right? You don't have to talk about the contagious hospital regardless of what words that you use. And it makes you think of a real place, right? It's no longer this romantic, idealized idea of nature. It's not even like Eleanor Wiley's, right? It's where you're floating in this land of milk and honey. It's like, oh yeah, across the way from the contagious hospital. It's putting you in a real geographical position here. Moving on, you see a lot of enjambment and caesura. If you don't remember what enjambment and caesura are, enjambment is when the sentence goes past a line. So, by the road to the contagious hospital under the surge of the blue mottled clouds driven from the northeast, a cold wind. Those first three lines are all enjambed, which means that you don't stop at the end of the line. We are kind of trained to stop when we come to the ends of lines in poetry. You shouldn't do that. You should follow the sentence. And so you don't want to do by the road to the contagious hospital under the surge of the blue mottled. I can't even, I didn't even do it right there. You don't want to stop at the ends of lines. You want to continue until there's a reason to pause, which it would be a comma, a dash, period, whatever. This, the feeling that the structure gives, it breaks, again, those conventions. And so in jamming those lines until you hit that was a loud snap, sorry. Until you hit the hyphen, which makes you pause, and the cold wind comes in. You feel the stillness of the area, and you feel the abruptness of that cold wind. Beyond, a waste of broad, muddy fields, brown with dried weeds, standing and fallen patches of standing water, the scattering of tall trees. So that stanza break there, where he leaves those two lines on their own, mirrors how the standing water patches are all on their own, and the trees are all standing all on their own, and there's no sense of order to it. And that helps you kind of imagine that same image that he is trying to get across with just words. And so you see the form, the structure, working together with the content to get across that important image. All along the road, reddish, purplish, forked, upstanding, twiggy stuff of bushes and small trees with dead brown leaves under them, leafless vines, lifeless in appearance, sluggish days spring approaches. So those hyphens that you're forced to pause at as well. Leafless and lifeless. I kind of like that comparison of the two. Leafless means lifeless. But also, there's no structure, right? There's no traditional form of here's where I'll rhyme. Here's what my meter is going to be. It's all kind of all over the place. Why? I wonder. How might that connect to his purpose? And that's something that I'm going to leave to you to figure out. They enter the new world naked, cold, uncertain of all, save that they enter. This idea of plants entering the world naked, cold, uncertain of everything except that you enter in the world. All about them, the cold, familiar wind. You know, he's talking about the end of spring, the end of winter and spring beginning, right? New life surrounded still by cold winds, surrounded with nothing, no leaves to help them, just naked. The obvious comparison is to how humans are born, right? When you are born, you leave the warm womb and you enter the cold world. You don't know anything in the world except that you are now in it. And you have nothing, you have no certainty. Are we the same? Now the grass, tomorrow the stiff curl of wild carrot leaf. One by one, objects are defined. It quickens, clarity, outline of leaf. By now the stark dignity of entrance. Still the profound change. Okay, so you see, yes, now there's nothing, but tomorrow grass will grow. And the day after that, you'll see wild carrot leaves starting to grow. One by one, objects are defined. It quickens, clarity, outline of leaf. Once it starts, it gets faster, and you see more and more growth. One by one, objects are defined. But now, the stark dignity of entrance. That will happen. But now, the stark dignity of entrance. It's just, here I am. I'm beginning. Still, the profound change has come upon them. Rooted, they grip down and begin to awaken, right? The trees are rooted. They're beginning to wake up again, and the plants come back. Bringing back in mind that it's a process, right? It doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen immediately, and it's not beautiful necessarily, but it's dignified, it's important in some way. Okay, so those are the 2 poems that I want you to have some interaction with and answer those questions. Do your best, and I hope that you enjoyed working with these poems. Thanks.